Good evening. This is the continuation of the adjourned meeting from March 15th, also combined with a special meeting of Beaumont City Council. Today is Tuesday, March 22nd, and I have 5:04. So with that, I'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Here.
Councilmember Knight?
Here.
Councilmember Condon?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
I believe Mayor Pro Tem White is in the hallway.
Oh, he's on the hall.
Yeah.
Mayor Lotta?
Here. Do we have, let's see, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Okay. So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn this to closed session at 5:05. I'm sorry?
One point of order, we need to go over the closed session agenda before adjourning to closed session.
Okay.
So I can read it, or anybody can read it. You want me to do that?
Sure.
Okay, so the closed session agenda, you've got A, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, city designated representative, interim city manager Elizabeth Gibbs or her designee, Police Officers Association, Police Safety Support Services. B, personnel matters, evaluation of interim city manager pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 sub B. C, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City designated representative Mayor Mike Lara and Councilmember Orozco, unrepresented employee, interim city manager. D, consideration of appointment/employment of city manager pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 sub B. E, conference with legal counsel, Ray, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 sub D, 2 or 3, one potential case. F, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 sub D, sub 2, or sub 3, one potential case, Brookfield TRR LLC versus City of Beaumont, Ray, demand for release of performance bond. G, conference with legal counsel, consideration of initiating potential litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D4, one potential case, adverse to Heartland LV Ray performance bonds. That's it.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Martinez, do we have any requests to speak?
No requests to speak, and for the record, I'll note that Mayor Pro Tem White arrived at 5:05.
All right, we'll go ahead and open and close public comment at 5:07 and adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Okay, we have council coming back out of closed session. Can I get a report from the city attorney regarding closed session action? Bob?
The city council met in closed session and no reportable action was taken.
For item A and B and
And item E.
And C, D, F, and G will be continued to after the meeting,
To a future meeting, yes.
or till after this meeting.
Are we going to do that?
Till after this meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
after the meeting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're stuck with us for a while.
Hopefully not too long. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead.
I'm sorry, A and B and E, no reportable action.
Correct.
Rest after the meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And another report out will be made
Yes.
after the closed session at the end of the meeting.
Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and get to our continued regular meeting and special meeting items. We'll call this continued regular session and special session to order at 6:17. Can I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Roscoe?
Here.
Councilmember Knight,
Here.
Councilmember Condon,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem White,
Here.
Mayor Lauter.
Here. Okay. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Councilmember Condon, can you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Have a invocation.
No invocation this evening. Do we have anybody for invocation?
No.
No? Okay. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Okay, with that, brings us to our announcement or recognition. And this evening, we have one for the California Federation Women's Club. Do we have someone here to accept that? Hi.
Have her come on up.
Yeah, come on up. Do you read them?
Sometimes not. It depends on if your voice is low.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and present this proclamation to the CFWC De Anza District Organization, made up of 16 regional women's clubs, including the Beaumont Women's Club, which was established in 1908 and is made up of women living in the greater Beaumont area.
Hi there, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Gotta get the women again.
Yes. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Sir? Early boy in the press. The Beaumont Women's Club. Give you a card. EAR.
Okay. Regarding public comment period, any one person may address City Council on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. With that, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and open public comment at 6:21.
First speaker, Judy Bingham.
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. I would like to clear up something that happened last Tuesday night. And the thumb drive that was given to me by Mr. Pinckney with supposedly my records request turned out not to be that at all. I have given you my records request. It is still unfilled, and I would very much like to have this information. I've been waiting over 6 months for this information. The thumb drive was information we already have, except there was some 2015 requisitions on it. But there was a big press release by Mr. Pinckney that said that he had secured all of the documents for Union Bank. Those bank requisitions belong to the city. Those were not Union Bank records. If anybody would like to see a copy of what I am asking for, I will be happy to give it to you. If you don't know what the bond fund accounts, maybe you should familiarize yourself with that. Thank you very much, and I want my public records.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Ron Roy.
Good afternoon. Oops. Is this working? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. I want to speak about 3 issues. First, are Council members receiving money from large developers or other business interests? If you are, as a matter of transparency, please disclose publicly from whom these interests you are receiving money from and how much. The reason this is essential is so that we can know whether you may have a conflict of interest on a proposed project or on overall development policies for the city. Again, please disclose this information. The next one is 14 acres next to Palmer Park. That's what I call it. On Wednesday, March 16th, over 100 Fairway Canyon residents met with Argent Management, BUSD, Beaumont Library District, and others to discuss the future of the 14 acres, as well as potential future school sites. Cheryl Thompson, who's here with her development friends and is compensated for being here tonight, actually stated publicly that Argent is willing to have a park built on the site. So we have a developer willingness here. We need to make arrangements for this to happen, starting with acquiring the property. I want to make this point out, especially for the 2 council members who voted on February 14th in favor of the tentative tract 36783, which would have greenlit 53 homes, many of which were as small as a stifling 5,000 square feet. You may have voted in favor of the tract because you believe there was no other alternative. And I want to thank the council for giving us a chance to have time to meet with the builder. I want to give you something here. So now that you are aware of another alternative, I hope that the next time you vote on April 19th, that you vote no on tentative tract map 36783. And I ask that you also consider a motion in favor of a park or combination of community facilities for the 14 acres instead. If you vote no on the tract and yes on a community use for the 14 acres, such as discussed by Fairway Canyon residents, this includes library, community center, sports fields, fire stations, etc., I would express my support for you, okay? And I would ask others to support you for the remainder of your term. I just think that you may have thought there was no other alternative, and I understand if that was your position. So I'm asking you, when that April 19th comes, please think about voting no against the project. And for those who did vote no, I want to thank you very, very much. It was a very courageous vote, and I've told people in the community about that. So maybe we can get a unanimous vote there. My third has to do with the existing Palmer Park. It's in terrible condition. I got 18 seconds, and I'll talk about that later. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
No further speakers, Mayor.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll go ahead and close public comment at 6:26. That'll move us to action items 2A, dissolution of improvement area number 19B of CFD number 93-1 and formation of CFD number 2016-1, Fairway Canyon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have Brian Forbath here with Straddling Yoka, and he's our interim bond counsel. And then we also have Rich Wall, who's our special tax consultant here. You previously saw this item back in February, and it was continued at the request of council, so we're bringing it back before you again tonight. Brian will give a brief staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Lara, council members. Brian Forbath from Straddling Yoka, Carlson and Ralph. So the actions here tonight are the initial steps in the formation of this new community facilities district, 2016-1. Fairways Canyon, and it has essentially the same boundaries as the existing improvement area 19B. The CFD that we would form on this existing improvement area would essentially replace and dissolve the existing improvement area and replace it with this new CFD instead. And there's a couple different purposes and reasons for doing that. The main reason is that the existing tax rates that were put in place back when this improvement area was formed back in 2006 are very high. That was done towards the top of the market. So the developer has requested that the city reduce the tax rates, and the only way to really do that is either through change proceedings or to form a new CFD and dissolve the existing one. There's also some boundary line issues that have arisen in terms of the way the developer ended up. The grading plan of the project caused a slight shifting of the boundaries that made it so the improvement area itself didn't quite track all of the lots that were actually to be formed. And so the formation of this new CFD would solve those issues. So this is the initial step in the process. This states the resolution of the intention of the City Council to form this improvement area district. To form this community facilities district, and also its intention to incur bonded indebtedness for the CFD. It calls for a public hearing to be held on May 3rd, at which time another report will be given. There'll be a facilities report that will be presented by the Webb Associates, which will describe all the facilities that will be financed from the CFD. And at that time, should council decide to move forward, there would be an election that would be held that evening, at which the landowners within the property, within the district, would vote either in favor or against the formation of the CFD. Also tonight, there's a reimbursement agreement that's to be approved. Essentially, Argent has paid for the costs associated with the formation of this new CFD and the dissolution of the prior CFD. And the reimbursement agreement provides a mechanism that if and when bonds are issued, that the developer could get reimbursed those costs that they fronted for this. But the city is not responsible for those costs in and of itself. The developer will be paying for those. With that, I don't know if anybody has any question. I know, Richard, if you have anything you want to add or not. I know the developers are here too, so if you have questions, I'm sure they can answer what's going on with the project as well. But I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
I had a couple, but...
Pardon?
Oh, wait. Am I the only one that didn't have a question?
Do you want to get public comment first?
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do, Mayor.
Okay, I want to go ahead and open up public comment at 6:30.
First speaker, Judy Bingham.
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. I have a chart here of the assessed values of the 2016 property. You are going to approve a $16 million bond on property that's worth $3.4 million. Two of the parcels are so small, they're worth only $9 each. I'd also like to read you Government Code 43605. A city shall not incur an indebtedness for public improvements which exceeds in the aggregate 15% of the assessed value of all real and personal property of the city. Within the meaning of this section, indebtedness means bonded indebtedness of the city payable from the proceeds of taxes levied upon taxable property in the city. From the State Controller's Report, November 2015. In our review of the city's comprehensive annual financial reports for the year 2007-8 through 2013-14, we found that the city has not capitalized capital assets nor recorded depreciation expenses within its governmental activities financial statements. This resulted in inaccurate financial statements as well as a qualified audit opinion. Public record requests for documents regarding the construction of the city's sidewalks, sewers, roads, and lighting are returned, stating that the city does not maintain any construction records and has no knowledge of the public sector construction occurring within the city limits. That's the kind of public records answers we get.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Next speaker, Ron Roy.
Thank you. Quickly, I was just going to say I was talking with some of my neighbors about this. We're wondering about the allocation of Melrose funds. We're in 19A. I'm in 19A. My question is, when will our fees be paid off completely? If I understand this correctly, that this will not affect 19A. The funds for 2016 will be applied to the project that's being built by Woodside. What I want to know is, first of all, it's under construction. The Woodside project is under construction. And I'm curious as to who's paying for that. Is that under an existing Melrose bond? If not, it's usually paid for with bonds. And they were asking a couple of questions about the high tax rates and the improvement area. I was concerned about the boundaries of the new area in terms of whether, how is that different from the prior area? I think it was 19B. And so if we get a map of 2016-1. So I'm just asking questions mostly. Just asking questions, and that's pretty much where I'm at. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Michael Turner.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm Mike Turner. I'm from Argent Management. We are the management arm for SDC Fairway Canyon, the developer of Fairway Canyon. And as Brian pointed out, these CFD improvement areas were completed back in 04-05 for the entirety of the Fairway Canyon project, of which one of them is improvement area 19B. And right now we have Woodside building homes in 19B. And as a normal process of getting the tax rate, this is what it's all about. We're getting the maximum tax rate below 2%. If you don't vote to approve this, the tax rate will be higher on those homes for Woodside Homes and the entirety of 19B. So they would be approximate savings of about 50% of the CFD max tax. So this is a good thing of lowering our tax rates out there, such that the home buyers for Woodside can qualify for their loans. And this is just the normal process of a CFD, and your goals and policies on CFDs is a guideline to get the tax rates below 2%, and that's what we're doing right now, is we're asking you to approve this such that the rate and method, which is the tax rate and method, based on today's values of the homes, which are approximately 60% or so less than when they were appraised back in 04-05, and the initial tax rates were set. So on the average, the tax rate is going to be lowered by about $2,000 per home. And that's all we're asking. There's otherwise it gets very complex, and you'll have homeowners in the neighborhood paying different taxes in that specific neighborhood. And so what we're trying to do is just set it today based on the current values that our builders are giving us, and set the tax rate such that it does not exceed 2%. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mayor, we have two requests to read into the record, public requests on this subject, if I may.
Okay.
Okay, our first reading is from Libby Uramovic, and she would like read into the record concerning this issue. Interim City Manager Elizabeth Gibbs claims no knowledge of the bonds acquired by the city, yet she is submitting a staff report to acquire even more Melrose bonds. Staff and the developers continue to proclaim that the city has no liability, but common sense, the FBI raids, and the State Controller's report tell a different story. The city is required to maintain all government records, including all records for the bonds. Council did not budget to fund a finance department or a city clerk department, choosing instead of spending the taxpayers' money on lawyers and consultants. Fairway Canyon is a development area that is 15 minutes from fire and safety protection. It is not only criminal but ridiculously reckless for City Council to approve more housing development that will put more families' lives further at risk when Council has no intention of budgeting for the operation of the city. State law requires environmental impact reports, but there has not been a legal EIR in the City of Beaumont in 20 years. The city is required to maintain records of the building of all infrastructure, but the city cannot and refuses to release any information on who is building the city's infrastructure. But most importantly, it is illegal to trade Melrose bonds for mitigation fees. It is a state and federal felony to improperly use the municipal bond funds. Developers do not have any right to sue the city because developers are just as criminally liable for the illegal use of the Melrose bond funds as Beaumont staff and council. In the past 22 years, the city of Beaumont has illegally acquired $350 million in municipal bonds. The city can't even produce records for bonds this council acquired in the last year. Beaumont property owners are not only paying for those illegal bonds, but is also paying for the maximum, which is whatever the city wants to charge the property owners. Legality and honesty are two words that mean nothing to the Beaumont City Council. Pinckney and staff, under council's direction, committed fraud and perjury when they faked receiving bond documents from Union Bank. The city of Beaumont's continuance of criminal activity while being investigated for criminal activity is unbelievable. But we are talking about Beaumont, the city that stole sales tax from its neighboring cities. Beaumont's solution for their legal activity is not to stop, but to destroy their documents and proudly proclaim that they do not have and maintain records because council allocated all the taxpayers' money to pay for lawyers and consultants instead of budgeting to properly use and properly operate city clerk or finance department. It is now over $60 million WR-COG judgment against Beaumont for stealing the county's mitigation fees. Judge Chafee wrote in detail about Beaumont's illegal trading of Melrose bond funds for mitigation fees and used the term the willful child to describe Beaumont's mentality. I encourage all citizens of Beaumont to appeal to the State Attorney General's office and the FBI office in Pasadena to stop the city's illegal activity. As Beaumont City Council has proven, they have no control over the city, no concept of illegal activity, and no concern for the welfare of the citizens. We have another submission request. This one is by Bruce Cook, General Counsel. Dear Mayor Lotta and members of the City Council, I represent SDC Fairway Canyon LLC, the owner and developer of the Fairway Canyon project in the City of Beaumont. At the City Council meeting of March 22, 2016, you will be asked to vote on a resolution of intention to establish Community Facilities District number 2016-1 for a portion of the Fairway Canyon project. The new CFD 2016-1 consists of territory that is currently located within the improvement area number 19B of City of Beaumont Community Facilities District 93.1. Upon formation of CFD number 2016-1, improvement area number 19B will dissolve and no longer be any force or effect. In other words, CFD 2016-1 will replace the existing improvement area 19B CFD. As discussed below, the dissolution of improvement 19B and the formation of CFD 2016-1 has a positive economic impact for the future residents in the new district because the CFD maximum tax will be lowered by approximately 50%. This reduction will occur in an equitable manner for all residents within the new CFD 2016-1. The failure to form CFD 2016-1 will, in the near term, leave improvement area number 19B and its associated higher tax rates in place. SDC Fairway Canyon LLC has petitioned the city for the formation of CFD 2016-1 in order to reduce the current maximum CFD property tax rates that are defined within the previously recorded rate and method of proportionment, RMA, for the planned homes within the improvement area 19B. The current maximum CFD tax rates that are defined in the RMA require a total tax rate that exceed 2% of the estimated sales prices for these houses. The establishment of the CFD 2016-1 and the proposed new RMA for 2016-1 will bring the total tax rate for all houses to less than 2% based upon the estimated sales prices for the homes. The proposed CFD tax reduction will allow merchant builders to clearly disclose lower tax rates to their new homeowners. homeowners. This will allow these homeowners to facilitate qualifying for the home financing loans. It should be noted that the new maximum tax rates that are defined within the proposed RMA for CFD 2016-1 are based upon home square footage rather than lot frontage, which allows for a more equitable levy of special tax. The City Council's approval of this agenda item will lead to an average reduction of approximately 50% in the estimated total tax obligation for the homeowners. This is depicted in the table that's included in this memo. The City Council's denial of the formation of 2016-1 and the new RMA allows Improvement Area 19B and its associated higher tax rates to stay in place. In accordance with existing recorded RMA for Improvement 19B, SDC Fairway Canyon LLC may partially prepay the special tax obligations prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for each parcel. Would you like me to continue, or just include this for the record?
Are you just about ready to wrap that up?
There's still about another minute.
Okay.
To pass the 3-minute mark.
I think we all have a copy of it.
Yeah.
We were provided with it.
Okay. So for the record, council does have copy of this memo.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'll go ahead and close public comment at 6:43. Any comments or questions from council? Councilmember Knight?
I also have questions, too.
Good evening. Mr. Forbath, you are our legal counsel here, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and basically, my understanding is this. Basically, the tax rates are too high. What we're doing if we pass this, it will lower the tax rates, correct? And this is something the developer requested. There's some few boundary line issues and the issue with the grading plan. Now, are we doing anything illegal here?
Not at all. You're following the state law and the Miller's Act to do what we're doing here. There's going to be an election that's going to be voted on by the authorized electors within the CFD. This is all in accordance with the Miller's Act, what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Yeah, you might as well up here ask you.
Sure.
And maybe this can be directed for Elizabeth if So, just a couple of questions, because I got questions that some of the residents over there were asking, and I kind of shared my view a little bit, but what's important, I just wanted to make sure I get this on the record, and that is there's a current CFD in place at a higher rate.
That is correct. Yes.
And so, if we were to leave this in place, all it would mean is that new future residents will be paying a higher tax rate for properties that they purchased there.
That is correct. There's a couple different potential ramifications. One is, the city has goals and policies in effect that says, essentially, when you issue bonds, you're supposed to have tax rates at 2%. So the developer could come to you and ask you to waive those policies or not. If you did nothing, that would be a decision that the council could do or not do. The property owners in and of itself could decide that it's too hard to market the property with this increased tax rates, and they can make their own decisions, their own economic decisions, whether to prepay the taxes or not as well. Or you could take an action tonight to lower this and have it done in accordance with the Miller's Act.
Okay. And the next question is, how will this affect the facilities and the services in that area right now if we were to reduce this rate for their, how would that affect current residents that are there now, and the services?
I don't believe in Richard, help me. I don't think the services tax is being reduced, right? It's just the facilities tax that is going down. And so what this means is, underneath whatever development, and I'm not all that familiar with the development agreement that you have with SDC Fairways on this topic, but they've got certain infrastructure that they're required to put in. The reduction in the taxes is going to lower the amount of bond proceeds that they're going to be able to receive. You're authorizing $16 million, whether or not final development allows a full $16 million or not sure, but probably something less than that to be issued. And so higher tax rates allow more bonds, lower tax rates allow fewer bonds. So the lowering the tax rates will reduce the amount of infrastructure that the developer would be reimbursed for, and they would have to come out of their own pockets for more of the infrastructure.
Okay. And again, I'm just clarifying some
Yeah.
question. And then, so to add to that, what you know, and kind of piggybacks off of Councilman Knight's. So, and we've heard the benefits that are for the developer to be able to develop, and for the homeowner. On the city side, is there any downfalls or negatives that will hurt the city in terms of having to change this?
No, I don't see any negatives. I think it's, from a policy standpoint, I think it's probably a good thing with everything that's gone on with CFD 93-1 to sort of set that aside and now look at each of these improvements as their own CFD and have their own list of facilities, their own accounting and so forth to make this, I think, a cleaner way. There's not any other city I know of that has the sort of CFD improvement area system that Beaumont has, where there's one CFD and all these improvement areas and one list of authorized facilities, and this would start you all on the course of being more like your neighbors in other cities in California.
Instead of a big, huge, and I think that's kind of the discussion that we've had here in the past, council meetings, is that we kind of want to go and making sure that from now on we go forward and making sure our CFDs are aligned with what the rest of the state is doing as well. So,
Yes.
so okay, thank you.
And the only other comment I think I'd say is the list of list of services is a little broader than what the list was in the prior ones. There's services that are also eligible to be paid for. The tax hasn't changed, but it's broader. It provides for the flexibility to finance to pay for police and fire services that weren't in the prior improvement area 19B.
Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to bring that up too, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Condon?
I'm not against CFDs. I think they hold a lot of opportunity. What concerns me is the history that this city has had in the past of how we have managed the CFDs in the city. And I'd like to know, and we're being asked now, and we don't know how all of our CFD money has been spent yet in the past, and now we are being asked to approve another one, and I don't feel yet that we have an accounting process in place that can follow in a linear fashion how the money for this new CFD is going to be spent. Can you give me some kind of assurance that there is a process in place that we could, on a yearly basis, know exactly how the money is spent and for what?
One of the things that we've been working on with Michael Bush as our interim financial advisor is getting our accounting in place to handle these from now on. We haven't truly issued any requisitions since I was appointed, and with this new CFD formation, there's an accounting structure that will be in place by the time, it's a couple months before bonds are, yeah. So Michael Bush will be finished with his reconciliation by the end of May, around June 1st, and then as part of the next fiscal year, that accounting structure will be in place. And also, if you recall, council did approve a large software purchase to help bring the accounting up to speed, and we gave that presentation a couple meetings ago. So we're working on all of the backbone part of that, and to answer your question, I don't think that this would be treated as in the past. We're working on making it better and more transparent and part of the accounting structure here. What has happened in the past is when the requisitions were issued, number one, they weren't necessarily brought to council, and number two, the trustee issued the payments, and we are working with our financial advisor to change that so that the checks will be issued here, and they will show up on the warrant list, and the public will see who's getting paid out of the CFD money.
And who will have signing authority over dispensing the funds of the CFD?
If I remember correctly, council directed the prior manager before my appointment that all of that was to come to council. The cost of issuance and requisitions were to be approved by council.
So the council will see every requisition that would come out of this CFD.
That's my understanding of what the direction of the former city manager was, and I will follow through with that. I do know since my appointment, some cost of issuances were done in June of last year, immediately following my appointment, and those were on the council agenda and approved by council.
Okay, one more question for our attorney. Would any irreparable harm be done if we were able to see this vetting of the CFD and how the money is going to be followed and the trail that's going to be followed, if we see what the formal procedure is going to be before we vote on this?
Yeah, let me just maybe step back just for a second in terms of the process when actual money will start flowing in. The city will receive any money. Right now, the only money that the city has with regards to CFT is the developer deposit that's been put up. The first step would be if you all decide to approve this and move forward, and you approve it after following the public hearing, in connection with next year's property tax bill. So come August, Webb and Associates would prepare a budget for you all that would be prepared and presented to you all that would be the special tax levy for next year on this property. And really what would it be, since there's no bonds yet outstanding, it would just be a levy on whatever is property that has a building permit that's issued as of, is it May 1? March 1st. So are there any?
This year, no. So it wouldn't be.
So there would not be a special tax levy next year at all. So there's no money that would come in to have to be accounted for next year from the CFD. The developer, at some point in time, probably they mentioned to me it would probably be a year to year and a half before they think development would support the issuance of bonds. And at that point in time, they would come to you all and ask you to approve the issuance of bonds for the CFD. And as part of the approval of the issuance of bonds, there's certain documents that are presented to you all, and one of them is called a bond indenture or trust agreement, and that sets forth all the trustees' obligations and rules, and in that it sets forth who is authorized to sign for what, who's authorized to be paid, and so forth. And at that point in time, the council could decide, well, we only want the mayor to sign a requisition, or we only want the city manager, or we want the city manager and the mayor to have to sign it. You guys, at that point in time, can make up whatever rules that you would like in terms of the requisitions and how those are done. Now, back to your question about irreparable harm. The issue or the timing here is the merchant builders out there building homes, and property owners are moving in soon, relatively soon. I don't know, Mike, if you have timing. June. And so in order to have to make these change proceedings as a landowner election, we have to do that before there's actual property owners in the CFD, in the boundaries of the CFD. If there's 12 or more registered voters living within the boundaries of the CFD at the time of the public hearing, within 90 days of the public hearing, then it is a registered voter election, and Argent and Woodside would not be able to be the eligible voters at that election. So that's the timing issue. That's the critical path for the developers, and that's why they're here, I think, tonight to try to.
And the interest rate too, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, interest rate risk. Too. I don't know if that answers your question, Councilmember Cunningham.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes, I have some questions for you, Brian. For the sake of, I got 5 minutes, so I need you to be as brief as you can.
Sure.
I know we have 17 minutes, and I'm hopeful that my council members colleagues will let me extend it if I need to, but I can't tell for sure. So just some clarification. Number one, this is authorizing $16 million?
Up to $16 million, not to exceed.
What does the old RMA offer up to?
$25 million.
Okay. Now, what we're talking about when in the letter from the attorney for SDC Fairway Canyon LLC talks about the average reduction of approximately 50% in the estimated total tax obligation. That's actually, it depends on how much bonds are issued, correct, to make a statement like that?
Yeah, it does. It depends how many bonds are issued and how the CFD is actually taxed.
So if, for example, only $5 million was issued, this is hypothetical, but only $5 million are issued on either the 2016-1 or the 93-1, the debt or the tax rates to retire that debt are going to be the same, correct?
Yes and no, because while...
I mean, overall it'll be the same, but as the attorney's letter says, it could be different between each home.
Right, and so what happens is on a rate method is you tax, it's got a waterfall of how you tax property, and you tax developed property first. So as it's building out, you've got to tax developed property up to the max rate.
Okay.
And so in the first year or two or three, if there's not fully developed, then those initial homeowners would pay whatever the max rate is, and underneath the old CFD would be a higher max rate than the new CFD.
And in the original RMA, and I was surprised it wasn't in the attachment, but at least Mr. Cook, I believe his name was, referred to it in here. The original RMA does allow, I mean, the city assumed that something like this might happen and put a clause in the original RMA that said that the developer could prepay down the debt so that it would meet our 2% goal, and it wouldn't alter the ability to sell the homes, correct?
Correct.
So by us not doing that, by us not enforcing that part of the RMA, we're saving the developer a considerable amount of, well, considerable is subjective, but thousands of dollars, if not more.
Yeah, I think, maybe the developer will want to talk to that better than I, but I mean, the argument that they would probably make is, yes, they would pay the tax, but because the tax is lower, they could sell the home for more. I don't know.
Okay, and I understand. I've heard that argument.
Yeah, that's their issue, not mine.
Okay, so the 2% is a goal. It's not. Is there a legal requirement as to how high you can tax?
Goal.
Okay,
yes.
But is there a legal requirement in California how high that can go?
I am not aware of a legal limit.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions, and
Sure.
I use the rest of my time to make a comment. What is legal is not always right, and what is wrong in the way Beaumont has been handling CFDs over the last year, in my opinion, is that, number one, all the debt has been on the homeowners for citywide and community, as well as community infrastructure for each community. CFD should not be financing mitigation and other developer fees. Those are expenses, investments that developers put up in front as part of their investment risk, in my opinion. Developers should invest in the infrastructure for communities. I believe it distorts the free market value when there's not an investment risk and we're giving the city a free ride. Now, that's just my opinion, but let's go on to what's really happened here. Some of the citywide infrastructure that the 93-1 is set aside to pay for are items that, like interchanges, that should be sent to the voters for approval. CFDs should be for maintenance, and our neighbors have done it this way, for maintenance of just public safety services and for landscape maintenance. Developers in Beaumont have had a free ride due to 30-year development agreements that established by former councils and administration put us in a position where when we want to reconsider agreements that were made 10 years ago that exist for another 10 or 15 years, the last time we even brought that up for discussion, within days we were threatened of a lawsuit by the developers. Said, no, you cannot adjust the development agreement. It's not something that we're going to want to change. And our city attorney looked into it and said, yes, you are significant expenses. So now what we're doing is the developer has come to us and asked us to do something that will benefit, it could benefit the new residents. However, I'd like to ask that I have another 3 minutes to continue, please.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. So now what we're doing is that we're saving the developer thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands. And I agree that CFDs are not a bad thing. It's just the way that we use them and the way that we do them. And the way that we've done them in the past has been a problem. And now we're in a point where, and I even had this discussion with Mr. Turner, and and Ms. Thompson as well. And that was, you know, if we're going to do this right, then let's renegotiate and reconsider the development agreement during this process. And I was told, well, we can do that later, or yeah, we might be open to that later. But we are in a position right now to finally be able to change the direction that the former council and the former administration has locked us into for the next 15 years. And I think for us to now approve another one of these without taking advantage of the fact that we are helping the developers out with financial gain, and the city basically is not getting anything out of this deal. We're not putting ourselves in any better position. We may be helping out making a more stable or more average payments, annual payments to the community, but you know, I brought up in the workshop the fact that all of the debt that we've done to build all the infrastructure in this town has been placed on all the new homeowners, and we're going to continue that process. There is no debt that the city has taken. In my opinion, for these citywide infrastructures, the city should go to the voters, say we want to issue bonds ourselves, this is going to be debt, and we need to prove as a city that we can pay this debt, and then we move forward in that direction. I personally, as I said in the workshop council, am not going to vote for or approve any more CFDs personally until we have a final accounting of the CFDs that we have. The final accounting, I understand, may be in April, and I think, again, for us to continue down this road when we don't have to in this case, and we can use some of our leverage in this case to put the city in a better position. For that reason and the reason that I'm not going to vote on approve. I'm not going to vote to approve any more CFDs until we have a financial accounting of where all the CFD money came from. I'm going to vote against this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple questions. Can you, I'm just trying to make sure, there's 3 zones within the CFD area, Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. Zone 1 appears to be the highest rate, and Zone 2 and Zone 3 appear to be identical, even though the non-residential price per acre there's a difference. Let me just, for example, in Zone 2, your non-residential property is $9,607 per acre. In Zone 3, it's $12,546 per acre, yet the cost to basically the homeowner, the special tax, was identical. Does that have any bearing, or is it the location of the lot that is the determining factor? So if it's a premier lot, the home, in essence, would be valued, the value of the home would be higher, and therefore your payment would be higher? Is that?
Yeah, I think that's right. Richard, do you want to come up? I mean, that's more for maybe Richard than me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Rich Well with Alberti Webb Associates, the city's special tax consultant. To answer your question, the reason why you see a difference in the rates for the undeveloped or the non-residential is it's the number of acres that are within those zones. So you essentially carve them up, so you have a smaller pool, you have a larger number of the rate per acre, if that makes sense.
Okay, what about the difference in the assigned tax? Zone 2 and 3 are the same, yet Zone 1 is higher.
So zone 1 is higher because it actually comes with a premium that goes along the frontage of the golf course. So
I saw that.
Right.
Okay, thank you. With this CFD that we're forming, we're going from 19B and forming the proposals to form 26 or 2016-1. You had indicated that this would allow us to pick up services such as fire and police, where we can't do that in 19B at this time?
19 and B, those were not authorized services, no. So in this one, we have police, fire, and paramedic services are additional services that are authorized that you can use
It's on B1.
Yeah.
B1.
Yeah, on that.
Thank you. So in essence, there are some improvements that will come with this new CFD, correct?
It'll provide the city with more flexibility in terms of how you can spend the services special tax.
Okay. Then the boundary issue, was that because we graded beyond the track map boundaries, or?
You know, it's you guys. The city didn't do it. It was the developer did it, and I don't know if Mike knows the answer to that off the top of hand. I'm not sure I know the full facts on that.
So when the CFD was formed, obviously all of the grading plans are not completed at that time. And if you go out to Fairway Canyon, it's hillside grading. So as the engineers tie in their lot lines and their boundary lines for the planning areas, okay, as you go up, you go out, okay? So there's some tweaking in there where, half the lot is in the CFD, and usually it works out fine. In this case, what it did is the golf course, the PGA, at the time, they looked at how we were grading. They had already approved it, and they said, can you guys push, they wanted us to push a couple lots back from the fairway a little bit. Okay, and there were some adjustments that were done there, and that's why it happened. Normally, they'll just be minuscule adjustments. And I wanted to, if I can, Mr. White, comment about the DA, and I wanted to go through a couple items. I wanted to point out that we're solely lowering the tax.
Yeah,
so when you lower the tax, the capacity...
Answer my questions. I appreciate that. So the boundary of the track map is not changed. It's just the boundaries of the CFD. We're adjusted to pick up the lots.
Yes, all of our maps out there are correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my last question is in regards to the reimbursement agreement. Just to make sure I understand, the reimbursement agreement, the money was put up by the developer.
Correct.
So it's not money that's coming from the city in any way.
That's correct.
And does the city get an opportunity for administrative costs of doing this also?
Yes.
Collect from that?
Yes.
Okay.
Should be able to collect its administrative costs associated with the formation of the safety staff time. So.
Thanks, Mr. Forbath.
You're welcome.
Mayor, may I ask one last question, please?
I had a question, too, as well.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Mr. Turner, I have a question for you. I think you told me that the mitigation fees for a fire station were paid on all the properties in Fairway Canyon years ago, correct?
Correct.
So this CFD bringing us fire services is not to build a fire station. It's the services to pay for a fire station to be staffed or to pay for fire service for that area.
What that fee, it was in your DIF fees, in your development impact fees.
Okay. And
it's recently you've increased the fire fee. I don't know, it's about a year ago, two years ago. So at the time, the fee was, say, $350 a DU, $400. What it was for, it was those fees in there. I think it was Fairway Canyon's fair share.
Right. The reason I'm asking is a lot of people in the town are expecting to raise fire station mitigation fees to pay for the fire stations that the CFDs so far have not paid for. And I didn't want anyone to get the feeling that this is a solution to that, because it's not.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So, clarification here.
Yeah.
So, okay, there you go. So if the developer hasn't completed certain requirements according to the developer agreement for certain facilities they have to build, we as a city do not have to release the bond to give them their money back after they've developed if there's certain projects they haven't completed, right?
I guess I'm not sure I understand the question. The bond is, do you mean like their performance bonds for the completion of infrastructure facilities?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Yes.
It's really more of a question for the city attorney, but normally you don't get a release of all your performance bonds until all the in-tract improvements are completed, but I defer to...
Right, I think that's correct. When there are performance bonds on a subdivision, the performance bond is linked to a security agreement, and the security agreement identifies the improvements that are to be made, and if those improvements are not completed or if they're not adequate, the city does not have to release the bond until such time as the improvements are adequately completed.
But the performance bond do not have any effect on the Melrose bonds, correct?
It's different.
It doesn't restrict them from being issued or anything such as that.
They're completely different.
Thank you.
I understand that, but I figured you had some insight on that, but okay. And then one more question. I mean, it was brought up, maybe clarification. So the previous bond, you said, well, I guess not, no question for you.
Okay.
So, but more of a comment. So, you know, when I look at this, I think we gave them staff and the consultants that we have asked to go forward on these CFDs. I think they took the opportunity to work with a developer here, and looking at one of our emergent, I think our foreseen situations here is with what we have, because we can keep it the way it is and we don't get anything out of it, or we come back and kind of look at some of the concerns that we have, and I think that's funding, fire, and safety down the road, and I think this does that. I'm hoping, like Councilman White, that as we go further down, we take that opportunity to do that. But I think in this case, we've done that, and I've talked to certain staff members, including Michael Bush and Webb & Associates, in terms of, you know, have we come to the point where we want to be? And they're like, not quite, but we're moving towards that direction. And I think this is a good example of that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Comment.
Councilmember Knight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that there have been some good changes here, that going forward, the things that we're looking at, like police and fire, and that's paramedics, that sort of thing. And I want to thank you for working with our staff and doing that. And I also I think it's in the best interests of everyone to approve this. And we're not, you know, our developers, you employ a number of people, do you not?
We lost 80% in the recession.
In the recession, and I know that it's been tough everywhere, and if you can, you know, regain some of those employees or whatever. But right now, this is the tool that we have, and it's in place. And I'm looking forward to knowing the accounting system, that we can do better all the way around, but I actually do see no reason whatsoever not to approve this tonight. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Condon?
More of a comment and then a question for Elizabeth. The 93.1, I like to see us getting away from that, because I think that has brought on a great number of our troubles. So I'm not against the 2016. I am concerned about the fact that I do not yet see that we have shown that we have a responsible plan for tracking how the money is spent. And my question, Elizabeth, is within 1 month's time, could we have developed a policy that will show how the money will be tracked, how it will be spent, and who will sign off on that? And then we could reconsider this in a month and have that in place? Is that unrealistic to think we could do that in a month?
No, I can bring you the policy, a draft of the policy for council to weigh in on. The financial management policies were actually approved by the Standing Financial Committee last night, so you'll see those on April 5th. So we are moving in the direction of solidifying the processes. The accounting software won't be here in 30 days, but I think Mr. Forbath explained that the actual bond issuance will be down the road.
I understand that.
Time, but we can certainly bring back a draft of a policy.
I would feel comfortable in voting for this if I saw the draft of a policy that the council can consider that will track how this money has been spent. And I think until we do that, we're really not on firm ground. I agree with a lot of the arguments my fellow council members have made, particularly Mr. White and also Councilwoman Knight. And but I can't in good conscience, until I know that we're going to be responsible in keeping track of this money, approve another one.
Would it be, in addition to those policies, would it be helpful if tonight the direction was the requisitions to reaffirm requisitions and cost of issuances would be brought to council before.
I would like to see a linear development of what the policy will be for tracking this money and who will be signing off on it. And perhaps it will go through the Finance Committee and be brought to the council, whatever the policy might be. I need to see that we have that in place before I would feel comfortable, even though I like the CFD and the things that it proposes. I can't vote yes until I see that we're going to be tracking that money responsibly.
Mayor, may I make one final comment?
Mayor Pro Tem White?
I just want to let my fellow council members know that if we were to hold off until we had a full accounting from our financial advisors on where the other CFD money has gone, and if we were to work an arrangement to renegotiate the development agreement with Argent, if they were available to that, it doesn't stop us from putting back in place all the things that you like about this one, which is the fire and the public works and employing people, and everything else can be done. I just think we have an opportunity to really do it right this time, and we shouldn't pass up that opportunity.
Thank you. Councilmember Knight?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question. The interest rates are tenuous, are they not?
Mayor, your time's expired. Would you like to vote on continuing discussion on this?
I move that we continue discussion for 5 minutes.
I just needed 30 seconds.
How about 3 more minutes?
3 more minutes.
Wrap this up.
Mr. Forbath, the interest rate.
Well, interest rates we won't really know until we issue bonds, which is probably not a year or two from now. I mean, the one thing I just want to bring back to just make sure we're all clear about is tonight is just the first step. This is just the resolution of intention. You're not approving the formation of the CFD tonight. That does not occur until after the public hearing on May 3rd. So if there's additional financial policies or whatever that wants to be put in place, that could be put in place and be sort of a condition of approval to the public, to actually approving the formation of the CFD or the calling of the election on the 3rd.
Are we approving the dissolution of 19B?
Not tonight, no. No. Tonight is just the resolution, it's just stating your intention to do that. It's the first step in the process, and then the actual formation of the CFD and the approval of the tax would happen.
So if we approve an resolution of intent and then we change our minds, we're not on the hook liability-wise?
No.
Okay. We can make the condition, too, as well, as you said?
To have a financial policy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could direct, if that's something Elizabeth thinks she can have down, yeah.
We can draft in 30 days, April 19th meeting.
Other questions?
No, I don't.
I'd like to make a motion.
Mayor, we have another request from Judy Bingham. I know.
So you spoke
Public
already.
comment's been open and closed.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution with the intention to establish a City of Beaumont Community, CFD District Number 2016-1, and with to add on there with the expectation that we are going to have a plan in place before this comes up to council. So
A plan in place for manage the accounting?
Yeah, the accounting policy structure.
A draft of management policies for CFDs.
Yes. Is it right? Correct?
Yeah.
Is your motion for both the resolutions and to approve the reimbursement agreement, or just are we doing one resolution at a time?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, adopt resolution two. They're all different numbers here. Right?
The numbers haven't been established yet.
Okay, so item 2A1, item 2A2, and 2A3.
I will second that motion.
Is that clear? Do I need to repeat?
Is it clear now?
Okay, we have a motion by Orozco, second by Knight, to approve 2A1, 2, and 3 with the added recommendation to initiate a plan for accounting administrative policies?
As Mr. Forbass had indicated that we can do, right?
Is that clear? Okay.
And we'll see that
April 19th.
April 19th.
All right, we'll take roll call on that. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
With the amendment, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
No.
Mayor Lara?
Aye. That brings us to item 2B.
Oh, sorry, hold on a second. Oh, so would that be brought to us here at the council or provided to us beforehand? Or will it be presented at the council meeting, or?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Item 2B, California Municipal Finance Authority donation allocation.
Kyle's going to get this.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. Hello, Mayor and Council. The California Municipal Finance Authority is a joint powers authority created to strengthen local communities by assisting, financing economic development and charitable activities throughout California. If you can remember back a couple years ago, the CMFA asked us to become a member and hold the TEFRA hearing for a Beaumont business that was looking at moving into the city, and that name of the business is Rudolph Foods Company. They make pork rinds and popcorn, and they were looking to utilize the financing method from the California Municipal Finance Authority to acquire money to purchase the property and the building and equipment to place into the building to be able to manufacture these food products. So that location is at 920 West 4th Street. It is an existing building that had been sitting vacant for quite some time. We were happy to meet with them and attract them to the city. They have chosen to make Beaumont their home and open their business there. On February 3rd, 2015 is when that TEFRA hearing, which is Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, that's when the hearing was held, and when the deal closed, the CMFA granted 25% of the issuance fee, which totaled $5,991.43 to the city. And another policy and program that the CMFA provides is they allow the city council in the jurisdiction in which they have partnered with for these types of projects to grant an additional 25% of that issuance fee to a local nonprofit. And proceeds of the bonds, I have that down. I don't think we need to go over that again. We discussed it before. It was to acquire the building in conjunction with Rudolph Foods. I have provided a list in the staff report of nonprofit organizations that held a business license or a business certificate with the city of Beaumont. So by the time we had finished the staff report, I got confirmation from CMFA that there's two criteria that need to be met in order for them to remit money to the nonprofit. And one must be that they are located in Beaumont. They can't have an address in Riverside or in San Bernardino. So that excluded some of the members or the organizations that were on the list I provided. The second criteria is that they had to be 501c3 organization as opposed to other exempt organizations. So today I went ahead and sent out a revised list of all 501c3 organizations that reside or have an address in Beaumont, and that was provided to you via email as well as here tonight. It's a fairly lengthy list. I apologize for the formatting. I got it from a for-profit website that provides this information, and to put it in a nice format, it was going to cost us $30 or so, so I decided to save some money and just print it out the way I could off of their website, which is why you get the commercial messaging about PayPal and all that fun stuff, so I apologize for that. I also have a IRS tax exemptions list that I have. At the end of the day, it's council's choice on what nonprofit you would like to donate this money to. It's the sum of $5,991.43. As you can see from the list, there's a whole slew of organizations ranging from educational organizations, charitable organizations, religious organizations on the list. So with that, I can answer any questions. One notable thing that I wanted to bring up is some nationwide organizations like American Youth Soccer, AYSO, aren't going to be on that list because they fall under a national tax-exempt organization. They don't have each of their individual regions have their own organizations, so you won't see them on the list, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't donate to the local region AYSO here if that's what council chooses to decide to do. And I can answer any questions. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add, this is a very voluminous list, and Kyle and I spoke about how to narrow this down. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but we are on a deadline to name. We talked about applications, like a grant process like we do for CDBG. That would have been my recommendation. However, we are under the gun, and to narrow it down would give the perception that staff was trying to sway council one way or the other. And so we decided to present the entire list and talk about it in the public in the interest of transparency.
I have a couple of recommendations, and I thought about this, and I wanted kind of now there's an opportunity to introduce the intern that I've been working here with Beaumont here. I didn't see an opening, so can I do that right now while I give my recommendation?
That's up to the mayor.
How about if we have public comment first before we have our
Okay, I appreciate that.
council comments? Do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, one, Mayor.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up public comment at 7:28. Stay close, Kyle.
Judy Bingham?
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. I got this agenda on Friday afternoon. At 8 o'clock Monday morning, I went into the office and presented this public records request because I knew this was coming up. I wanted all the backup for this. I'll read it. Copy of the bond and all documents and correspondence to and from the city to Rudolph Foods and our CMFA. I like to have the copy in my hands today or before the council meeting. The EIR for Rudolph Foods and Area 19B, both projects must be registered with the state CEQA. CEQAnet.ca.gov query form. Anyway, I was told the excuse was that Nicole is gone all week. So I asked that couldn't somebody in the city provide me with that information? So I'm asking now, why couldn't Kyle provide me with the information I requested before this council meeting?
Thank you for your comment.
Next speaker, Sean Blingett.
Mayor and council members, knowing that there is a time constraint on the decision to allocate the donation to a 501c3, as a former board member for the local chapter of Habitat for Humanity, I could think of no finer cause to make a donation to. Habitat provides homes for people who otherwise cannot provide them, and to be clear, the homes are not a gift. The homes are provided at cost to the applicants and to the receivers of those homes. So I would urge the council to strongly consider the local chapter of Habitat for Humanity for the donation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay. No further speakers, Mayor.
I'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:31.
All right, Mayor.
Councilmember Rusco.
Thank you. Just real quick, if I can, the reason I'm going to mention this is because some of the comments that I'm going to suggest in the recommendations, I wanted to give a little credit to the intern that's working for the city of Beaumont that's helping me out. Adon Espinoza. I just want to introduce him real quick. So come to the. So I just wanted to introduce, first of all, so you know who I'm referring to. This is Adan. He's a local student, former Beaumont graduate, and so he goes to RCC. Will be going to Cal State San Bernardino pretty soon. And so I just wanted to introduce you to him. So you guys know he's an intern that's working for me. That's signed up through the city of Beaumont here, helping me out. So,
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
But I kind of went through this list, and he kind of helped me go through it, and we were just checking to kind of an idea on where it would be good in use. And I know conversation of maybe giving it back to the Cherry Valley. Organization for some of the cost and stuff, and that had come up in the discussion. They do raise a lot of money as it is, and we've given to like certain organizations like the Boys and Girls Club already, and the Habitat for Humanity. We've done things. At the last CGBNG grant that we did. I know we recently had a presentation here by the Beaumont District Library, and the need for our growing community and students here. And it's very difficult when I look at this list here to not consider them, because we have a list of a lot of charitable organizations that are probably perfectly wonderful here, but a lot of them are associated with the church organizations, what I have nothing against. It just, we have a lot, and it's hard to choose from and pick one over the other. It's very hard. As well as organizations that are associated with sports and stuff with this high school, which I would be more than willing to consider, but at the same time, again, who do you pick over which organization? And that's why I'm looking at, and I would like my colleagues to consider the state of our library and the hopes of us building that for our community. And their sole job is to enhance purchasing books and opportunities for the kids. I know that I see every summer, because I take my kids there when, as educators, I take my kids there in the summertime, and the programs that they're willing to offer, it's all through donations and staff time that's there, but mostly parents and adults and other people. I see that money go to a good cause, and I would like to see a portion of that, if not all, going to the Friends of the Beaumont District Library.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to donate the entire amount to the Beaumont District Library. Friends of the Beaumont District Library.
Are they on here?
Yes, they are on page 3-4?
3-4.
3-4. Was that a motion or a second my motion?
That was a motion.
Okay.
I didn't hear a motion.
I was going to make a
heard
motion.
You said you wanted. Oh,
Can I make the motion?
Go right ahead.
So I'll make the motions. I'll make the motion for the entire amount to go to the Friends of the Beaumont District Library.
I'll second that, unless somebody else needs to second
I just have a question
We have
for
a-
Kyle.
that. Okay.
Question? We have a couple questions.
Yeah, I just have a...
Councilmember Knight?
Mr. Warsinski, when we approve whomever we decide on, what happens from there?
I will let them know that council voted to approve said organization via an email, and they will go ahead and remit that money straight to them. There will be no money coming to the city and then remitting it. So that's part of their policy, is that they remit the money straight to the tax-exempt organization of the city council's choosing.
But the other 25%,
The other 25% comes to the city.
and it's my recommendation that we put that into the council's contingency account for use at a later date, so that we don't spend a lot of time debating where to spend that money.
So does that need to be in the motion, or no?
When we get the check, we can bring it back to council.
Okay. So we're good at the motion that we have.
Okay, and, I had Habitat for Humanity at the top of my list, and Boys and Girls. There's a number of them here, so I actually am looking to where we can put the money that will benefit the most, and it's quite possibly with the library district.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't envy
That's
your
right. Thank
your
you.
position of picking from that list. I don't think any organization on the list is a bad choice.
You know, just point of clarification, I didn't see Habitat on here.
You know,
That's probably because they don't have a regional.
that could be because of the
They have-
national organization structure that they have. I can't speak 100% with confidence on that, but that's where I would probably lead to believe. So I know Habitat is a nonprofit. They have a license with the city to operate within the city, and that maybe.
But you didn't say they needed an address?
They have an address on Euclid, 738 Euclid Avenue. I just don't know if their tax-exempt organizational structure has that same location.
I got it.
Councilmember Condon?
Well, I just wanted to say, Councilman Roscoe, that I had a different organization in mind, and that was the Rotary, because they do so much wonderful work in the community and worldwide. But I have to say, being someone who was run out of the library regularly so they could close, I think you've given us a good choice, and I can support your choice also.
I wanted to give credit to my intern, but yeah.
Okay, any other comments? The only other comment I have that I saw in here, which is I'm familiar with, is the Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation and Park District that does a lot for the city. I don't know if they have a need for funds.
The general manager is here.
I know that you're trying to do some ADA upgrades that are expensive and costly, which would benefit the city as a whole. That would be one of my requests, but the library is also...
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, can we split this in half?
You know, I asked him that. I didn't get a clear answer back. That's why I said one or more in the staff report. If you'd like to, we can go ahead and try. Another thought is possibly amending the motion to say if it's possible to split, then do so forth with organization A and B, and then if not, then allocate the full amount to organization A.
I see you.
Before we amend the amendment or the motion, I'd like to give a comment. It was easily my first choice before you even mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't
and
want
I
to
think that our library district really does need our help. And I've seen their presentation at least 3 times now.
Yes,
and I think it'd be a great place for it to go. And so if you want to amend your motion, you can. I don't want to amend my second.
And I think that the full amount is a significant amount that could really make a difference. I think when you cut it in half, it makes it less valuable in their ability to do something meaningful with it.
Yeah, especially the women's club who goes there and puts a lot of time into that organization, into the library, and help out the kids and the programs. They just need the money and funding to do it. And I think this is back to our kids. And I can understand the parks. Hopefully, I was hoping that would have been on there during the CDP&G grant, but gave that out. So, but I'm not going to amend my motion. I'm going to keep the motion as is.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Okay, so the motion by Orozco, second by Mayor Pro Tem White, to donate total amount to the Friends of the Beaumont District Library. We'll take roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lada?
No. Okay, moving on. Brings us to item 2C.
Rebecca will give our staff report.
Non-commercial and political sign permits and regulations.
Mayor, Council, this report is broken into 2 sections to discuss signs, non-commercial messages, which include political, special event, types of permits and regulations. The first one I want to talk about is signs in the right-of-way. Currently, the Beaumont Municipal Code prohibits signs in the public right-of-way. However, an encroachment permit process was established to permit signs in the public right-of-way for political candidates and/or nonprofit organizations for special events. This process was divided into two categories: political signs and special events. The permit process allowed for different requirements based on the sign type placed in the right-of-way for certain types of events. However, due to recent United States Supreme Court ruling, it was determined that placing limitations on any class of non-commercial signs could be a violation of the First Amendment. In researching this case law, it was determined that while the City of Beaumont's municipal code does not specifically regulate sign type, size, location of non-commercial signage in the public right-of-way, practices have required a permitting process that may be in violation of this new ruling. The current encroachment permit process for political and special event signs allow different requirements based on size, material, and time limits. For example, 45 days for political signs and 30 days for special events. A limitation of size, 48 by 48 for special events, where only 24 by 18 were allowed for political signs. Additionally, special event signs are limited by the type of material to only be made of weatherproof plastic or wood, where there were no requirements to material on political signs. If non-commercial signs are allowed in the public right-of-way, those signs may include and are not limited to the following types of signs: political, religious, ideological, real estate, protest, private resident, other non-commercial signs, directional, special events, yard sales, labor organization or picket signs, and youth or sports organizations. Therefore, your options in this is to enforce the current ordinance and do not allow any signs in the public right-of-way, such as other cities we've researched, banning Calamasa, Redlands, and Encinitas. Or, if allowed, we're looking for direction on the limits that should be put in place that would apply to all non-commercial signs. Would they be allowed by permit only? Is there a fee? No fee? What is the time limit that we would put in place? The location, size, quantity, placement, and require or not require insurance to reduce liability on the city due to injury or damage. Allowing signs in the public right-of-way will require enforcement against all illegal signs, which involves the following process. Our municipal code states that any illegal sign within the public right-of-way is found and declared to be a public nuisance, and such sign may be abated by the city as follows. If the address of the owner or the person entitled to possession of the sign is known, a notice of the city's intent to remove or destroy the sign, stating the date after which the sign will be removed and destroyed, shall be mailed to the owner or other person entitled to possession by certified mail. Return receipt requested at least 10 days before the date. If the address of the owner or other person entitled to possession is not known, the notice shall be affixed to said sign 10 days before the date. The owner or other person entitled to possession of the sign may, before the removal of the date stated in the notice, file a written request for hearing with the planning department. The request shall identify the sign, its location, state name and address of the owner, and other persons entitled to possession, set forth in detail the contents why the sign should not be removed and destroyed. And finally, notwithstanding any other permission or any other provision of Chapter 17 to the contrary, any illegal sign within the public right-of-way which constitutes a hazard to pedestrian or vehicular traffic may be removed immediately and stored by the city at the expense of the owner or other person entitled to possession, pending completion of the notification and hearing process set forth in that section. Other considerations with dealing with political sign or non-commercial signs in the right-of-way, in order to conform to this Supreme Court ruling, if they are allowed in the public right-of-way, the city must create a uniform procedure to allow signs regardless of content or message. The city may place restriction on size, quantity, location, etc., but must follow the same rules for all signs, regardless of the content or the purpose or intent or message. If allowed, staff would be required to monitor the permits and the signs to ensure that any sign placed in the right-of-way have proper permitting, is properly placed, and properly sized. Any signs that are not removed or not properly permitted would need to be removed and the process for removing them is timely and costly. Potential permits for signs would allow non-commercial signs to be placed in the right-of-way throughout the year and would need constant enforcement. Confer with legal staff to determine the liability of allowing signs in the public right-of-way and what exposure to claims the city may face should the signs injure or damage a member of the public or their property, as well as liability faced for removal of signs or damaged signs that may be sought by the owner of the sign. Another consideration is due to staffing restrictions. There is only currently one code enforcement officer assigned to the city to enforce in the 35 square mile area. Thus, enforcement of the signs in the public right-of-way year-round would add an additional workload. Staff costs to enforce the permits, for example, during the November 2014 election, utilized approximately 80 hours of staff time to address violations or concerns regarding political signs in the right-of-way during the 45-day period.
That's it? That seemed a lot.
That's what they gave me. The other half of this is the signs on private property. Currently, the City of Beaumont Municipal Code Title 17 permits political or other non-commercial signs on private property without a permit, subject to the following requirements. Political signs. Signs displaying political or other non-commercial messages may be displayed on private property in any zone at any time under the message substitution policy. For residential, in residential zones and on legal residential uses, temporary or permanent signs displaying political or other non-commercial messages may be displayed at any time, subject to no maximum number of signs. The maximum size of any one size is 8 square feet, and the maximum area of all signs combined is 16 square feet. However, these limits on size, number, and total may be doubled during the time period which commences 45 days before and ends 10 days after the general or special election. On commercial and industrial property, the city had been enforcing the same size standards as commercial and industrial, the same size standards for commercial and industrial as residential until it was pointed out that the section only refers to standards on residential properties. Currently, there are no limitations on commercial or industrial property for these political or non-commercial signs. The options is to enforce the current ordinance and to put limitations, or I apologize, enforce the current ordinance for residential properties and no limitations for commercial industrial, which is how it's written, or bring back an ordinance for commercial and industrial properties and or amendments to residential properties with limitation options, time limit, location, size, quantity, placement. According to the municipal code, illegal signs or violations on private property for non-commercial signs require a different enforcement process. This enforcement process goes more towards the standard nuisance enforcement, where we go through the nuisance, the abatement, court order to abate it, that kind of thing, that process, our normal abatement process for private property. Other considerations for the Supreme Court ruling only made the determination regarding only discuss limitations on signs within the public right-of-way. However, it could be reasonably assumed that the council should direct staff to place the same limitations on private property. The same rules should apply to all non-commercial messages. So regardless of content, purpose, intent, or message, as long as it is not a non-commercial message. Should council direct staff not to bring back an amendment for commercial and industrial properties, then those private property owners could, under the current ordinance, place an unlimited number of non-commercial signs in an unlimited amount of size in any location, quantity, or placement within their property desired. There would be no recourse for the city to seek abatement due to aesthetics, traffic flow, safety, or otherwise. And any new ordinance would require city attorney review. The recommendation is to provide direction to city staff whether or not to move forward with preparing a proposed update and amended site ordinance regarding the placement signs both in the right-of-way and on private property. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Do you have any public comment?
Not on this item, Mayor.
Oh, we got one.
Oh, we do. That's okay. Yes, we do, Mayor.
All right. Just in off the press. I'll go ahead and open public comment at 7:50.
Mayor, members of the council. Dwayne Burke, Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation Park District. Just a question regarding the signs, and I appreciate Rebecca coming to my office. And we use the signs in the right-of-way to advertise for our events, and like most cities and special districts do. I see it a big effect. However, if you're going to adopt the policy of the Supreme Court, what prohibits anybody from putting a car out in the public right-of-way and putting for sale sign on there, or a political sign saying, vote me? are you going to enforce that? Because I think that's a bigger problem than you have with the sign that I would be paying a permit for and changing it to the sign where I pay that permit to advertise for an event that benefits the quality of life of the city. So I think it's really kind of new grounds, and I see people doing things with car wraps and for sale signs on their cars, and pretty soon vote whoever on a car parked in the public right away. How would you enforce that? Not to give you an idea on how you do your next election, but I just want to make sure that you know that I do see other problems happening from this. So
we actually had a trailer parked with a vote for, I won't name the trailer councilman's name, but it was just parked on the side of the road, which was in violation. But the city got on it right away and made the candidate remove it.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that to your attention because we could drive signs around. So let's come to Oktoberfest or something else.
No further speakers.
Mayor, I'd like to make...
Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:52. Mayor Pro Tem White?
I think more comments than questions, Rebecca.
Okay.
So my first thought is that we do prohibit the right-of-way because the 10 days, all of those rules and procedures, the hearing, all of that, wouldn't really have any effect on political signs when that means the person can get 10 days illegal coverage or more. But I do struggle with the idea of the non-commercial Cherry Festival, those signs. My bigger concern is two concerns. Number one is I definitely think that there should be the same rules for commercial as well as residential, and I'll tell you why. Because as council members, we deal with a lot of commercial property owners. They come before us, they ask to talk to us about things that we're going to vote on, and when I was running for council, I didn't know anybody who owned commercial property. So I didn't have the opportunity to go and put up a billboard on somebody's commercial property, and it's not restricted. So by allowing commercial property to have an advantage over private residential property makes it an advantage for incumbents as it is to challengers, and I think that that's wrong. And then the other thing is that the 8 square feet maximum size of any one sign on residential, if you're like me and you actually measure the sign, you cannot find a lawn sign really online or with most of the lawn signs companies that actually is under 8 square feet. It's usually about 8.2, 8.3, and I didn't want to have the limited amount of funds I had to be wasted on signs that were going to get taken down. And so I had those really funny looking short signs. But so I think I think we should, if we're going to allow residential signs, that we allow them to be big enough to match the standard residential lawns. I don't know. I struggle with the prohibiting the right-of-way. I think the other cities have done it. But I think if we could maybe make it specific enough to what the the organizations have, but you have to allow political signs the same. And we could do something like maybe you can only have 10 citywide, something like that. So something where we could make it so that our events continue to get the kind of coverage they need, but at the same time we're not restricting political free speech. So that's just my thought. Like I said, not a whole lot of questions. But.
Thank you. Councilmember Roscoe?
Yeah, some questions. Can you give us an overall, the difference from the original to this one right here? Or is this one the original one? Or is this the one that you're bringing to us is different from?
The staff report covers what's in our current municipal code.
Okay.
So this is currently available. What we've currently been enforcing with council policy is a little bit different for these for signs in the right-of-way. Our code currently prohibits signs in the public right-of-way. However, council had given approval for the encroachment permit process each political year to issue encroachment permits for these signs that are technically prohibited in our code.
Okay.
So our current code prohibits signs in the right-of-way.
And I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Councilman White. The biggest thing for me is a fear of limiting and taking away freedom of speech. And I've had this conversation with the previous city attorney back and forth. I had emails conversing with him about the right and case law and this back and forth. And it's important because there are people here, and at the same time we want to make sure that we don't have certain incidents where we're just popping signs everywhere like we see in the city where, Beaumont singles or single Beaumonts, you see that everywhere. It's just like they have one right after the other. And it kind of reminded me of the election we just had. I know in some cities too as well where I kind of would like to see, after a certain amount of time of election, that or when the permit expires, that you have to pick them up, and if they become a nuisance problem in terms of, okay, it's past the permit time or it's past the election cycle time, then our staff will pick them up, but we're gonna put a fee behind it, and just for the not to keep your signs, but basically having to put the manpower on and picking them up and giving them back to you. I think that will help us in terms of picking up the signs and making sure that, or in that way. I think there's part in some cities where you put a sort of like a bond or a money up front. I don't think that's fair because then, people that are limited in funds, again, you're limiting their freedom of speech because if they don't have the finances to do that, they're not able to do that. So I kind of like the idea that Councilman White was suggesting is that, and I think I spoke to Elizabeth about it, was we kind of take a look at other cities and what they're doing and come up with a couple ideas. But again, for me, what goes for commercial should be good for political as well. And we only see political in certain times of the year. But and the whole fair process in terms of how we do commercial, that was true. I think that was one of the biggest issues that had come up during the election cycle was, certain property owners had, certain candidates had an advantage over others because you put huge sign sizes on theirs, and that, I think it was a disadvantage. So we want to make sure we have an even playing field. So,
Councilmember Knight.
Rebecca, this is Demi. For me, our signage, and we've updated it off and on. It's been working pretty good, right? Has it, basically? Well, with only one code enforcement person?
Obviously, we haven't been enforcing the code with council direction, so it's hard to say whether we would have a problem if we enforce the code of no signs in the right-of-way, how it would affect the cost of code enforcement or the enforcement time. So I don't know, I can't really answer that our current code would enforce it. The problem we have is the way we've been enforcing it has been ruled not legal in terms of First Amendment rights. We did reach out through the listservs to reach out to other cities, and because this is a brand new ruling in February, nobody has a code for us to check and look at that meets this requirement. So everyone's kind of scrambling before the current political season to come up with a standard set of regulations for all non-commercial messages.
Oh, okay. Well, and then when you, to me, when you say commercial and then like homeowners, to me those are like apples and oranges when I'm looking at signs. Commercial to me is business. They're promoting their business and that sort of thing. So I'm not quite sure how to view this in the sense of, can you give me some insights?
Yeah, so this discussion is only non-commercial messages. So this is not signs on the walls for businesses. This is not signs advertising businesses. This is purely a business who might want to support a presidential candidate putting a sign on their property, or support a nonprofit in some way, other non-commercial messages. So we're only discussing signs right now for non-commercial messages, but what we're talking about is commercial property zoned and residentially zoned property. So someone could put up a religious sign on their residential property, so could somebody on their commercial property. The difference in our current code is the residential property sign for non-political messages is limited, where our commercial is not. So someone could put up a really big religious or political sign, where someone at their home would only be limited to the size in the code under the way the current code is written.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect people's business signs.
Okay, okay. Well, and I think that people have the right to, if they want to put commercial, they should have that right to do that, but that's where I am.
Yeah, our code does cover commercial signs. That's just not on what we're discussing today.
Right,
So we've
right.
got limitations for how much wall sign, how much monument sign, that kind of size and requirements based on the size of the business.
Okay.
Councilmember Condon?
The only problem with signs that I've evidenced anywhere in the city are the yard sale signs. And I don't know if the ordinance you're putting together is going to address that. I saw one of our officer volunteers scraping this yard sale sign off, and I asked him if he got paid extra for that, and he jokingly said yes, he did. But that takes a lot of their time, and he told me that he regularly goes around and takes down those yard sale signs. People don't do it themselves. I wish they would.
Yeah, currently our code does prohibit the yard sale signs in the same right-of-way area. Again, only one code enforcement officer. We're not out there every weekend enforcing that. However, that is very similar to this ruling. It was a directional sign. So even though the yard sale, we say prohibits it, it is in a sense affected by this. If we allow non-commercial signs, directional signs were the exact example. So if someone puts out a directional sign for their yard sale in the right-of-way, it would meet whatever code. If you allowed them in the right-of-way, those would probably become more abundant, because currently it's prohibited. But under this ruling, a directional sign is a non-commercial message and would be allowed based on if you gave us an ordinance allowing signs in the right-of-way.
Any other questions? Rebecca, is there any way to differentiate between event signs like the Parks and Rec would have or Cherry Festival would have, or is that a violation of the First Amendment right?
Yes, any non-commercial sign all has to be grouped together. So events, directions, political, those are all considered non-commercial messages and would all be grouped together as one ordinance if you chose to move forward to allow
So it's
them.
almost an all or nothing if you eliminate them in the...
Correct.
Okay.
That's the case.
But with allowing, if you put regulations on private property or using our current regulations, those signs in the right-of-way with property owner permission for special events are non-commercial and would be permitted to be moved onto those private properties. So if someone, for instance, wanted one at the corner of Oak Valley Parkway and Beaumont, and they got permission from the Stater Brothers Center, they could move that sign into their landscape area outside our right-of-way and still have the same effect. It would just be a matter of reaching out to the property owners near where they would normally put them and see if they could get permission. And obviously a concern would be, I don't know how visible some of the other areas would be, but it is possible to still put them in the private property.
Okay. So, and you're just at this point looking for direction from council as which way to go.
Mayor, I'd like to make one final comment if you're winding down.
Sure. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem White?
I have to disagree respectfully with Councilwoman Knight. There was a problem in the last election. And whether it's perceived or real, it's a problem that we should avoid. And the problem was that there was the impression that incumbent signs were not coming down as fast as challenger signs were. I was not the only one who saw that as a perception, because my signs were the ones coming down. But when we have this kind of enforcement, and you're not able to enforce everything, and you are selective in what you enforce, the people who, my understanding at that time, the only signs that were enforced were ones where people called and complained on it, because you're limited in the amount of people you have. So you wouldn't go out to, who knows where and take down a sign unless someone complained about it. And so, again, whether or not it was real or just perceived, I think it's something that we need to avoid, because the incumbents in the city of Beaumont for 20 years have had an advantage that challengers have never had. And I think that's important that we stop that if we can.
I'm not sure if a sign ordinance will fix that.
Well, I think if we eliminate all right-of-way, then the city does not have to, there's no selectively enforcing.
Right. But eliminating all right-of-way also eliminates the event signs for local.
Right, and that's why I was suggesting if there's a way that we could, design it so that it has to be exactly a certain size of a certain material, and you can only put 10 of them in the city, I think that's an option. But I like your idea better, which is to allow those signs in private property. But again, I really think you don't want to draw a distinction between private residential properties and commercial properties, because again, it gives an unfair advantage to those of us who are dealing with people's businesses all the time, just being council members.
So the option in that sense would be to add the ordinance to have the same regulations, bring back an ordinance to add the regulations on residential to the commercial and industrial properties. Whether you want to, again, with direction, increase those sizes for all of them, then that's something we can bring back an ordinance with an option.
If you could have some options of what other cities are doing with residential versus commercial.
But I think, I agree with you, and I think a discussion, we're not done.
No.
I think if you bring back some of the stuff we talked about, as well as what Mayor Lahr is suggesting, that we have another discussion without something that we have to vote on.
So did you want me to, I'm sorry, did you want me to bring back something with some regulations in the right-of-way, or were you strictly wanting me to look at regulations on private property?
I would like to see private property too as well.
But no, I think if we should try and address the right-of-way issue that Parks and Rec brought up.
No, both, yeah.
But it's
I can answer that a little bit. Signs on your car fall under the vehicle code, so we don't enforce that separately than the 72-hour parking requirements and regulations. That's not in our code as a sign.
Yeah, that's not the issue.
Okay, sorry.
I was talking was more along the lines of how can we do it so that the Cherry Festival, the other organizations can continue with their signs, and we not be in violation of saying political signs can't be done.
So why don't we do this? Because I think we're getting a lot of different suggestions. Why don't we meet with the individual, like the Park District and the Cherry Festival, and gather some of their, how can we compromise and get the community events advertised without violating the right-of-way issue that we have. And then we'll also bring back some suggested language on the commercial. I think that's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Also on, permit processes too, because I think fees may need to come into play because they've got to support staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
currently our ordinance does not, it is an exempt permit for private property, so we can definitely take it off the exemption list in that ordinance and move it to a permitted process.
I like that idea. If we can just move
We'll
forward.
get together with some of the event staff.
What do you mean permitted?
They would have to apply to the city for a permit to put their signs on private property so that we can check it to make sure it meets the requirements and then issue a permit.
For private property, as
Private
in
property.
for
Like your house.
non-commercial?
Just
So-
non-right-of-way, so commercial or residential, but private property.
What kind of signage?
Non-commercial messages.
Commercial.
So political?
So yes.
So if I want to put a yard sign in my yard, I got to get a permit with the city?
We're talking about looking at those options.
So I know from
We're
the
looking at options at this
Yeah,
point. We're not
okay.
landing on anything
We'll add
solid.
it. We'll add it to the report back that we bring
Okay. I just want to get...
Perhaps we can do permits only over a certain size.
That was going to be my next question, yeah.
I just want to get
Signs.
council's perspective in terms of, I know when I was talking to Mr. Pigney about that, one of the concerns is, when you have a body like ours trying to dictate the difference between, the language, then we become... We are then we are a body that is violating the Constitution by dictating or how do I say, interpreting the Constitution, and that's not our job.
And any permit we receive, we do not review it based on content. We review it based on the classification, so if it's a wall sign, and whether it meets the size requirements, we do not dictate what it can say. There's a message substitution policy. The message is not what we review. So in this case, we would not review the message. We would review the quantity, the size, the location, and make sure it meets the requirements, not the message.
So if I put a pull-down sign on my house, on my garage that says, vote for Donald Trump, I'm just saying that, nothing kill hysterical here, and I pull it down on my garage, and it's too big, I can be told to remove that? Not by my HOA, but by the city?
That's correct. Even currently, our political sign, if it's larger than is allowed under this code, we can issue a citation for having a sign too large based on our code.
I need to ask a question.
Okay.
Councilmember Knight?
I would like to see that come back, so I wasn't done.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Just a quick question. So this HOA stuff with our CC&Rs, who trumps what?
HOA.
The HOA?
The HOA can be more restrictive in the city, but the city will only enforce the city requirement. So if the city has a requirement that allows for a political sign up to 8 square feet, that's all we will enforce. If your HOA has adopted policies and you have bought into that say you can only have a political sign 1 square feet, then they would have the right to do that and enforce that.
Okay.
But the city would not get involved to remove a 2 square foot sign because the HOA regulates it at 1 and the city regulates it at 8.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Laura.
Councilmember Condon?
I know everybody's ready to move on, but it troubles me deeply to think that I would have to get a permit and pay to put a sign in my own private property. And I believe that that is an infringement of my freedom of speech. So I think that idea should be looked at with very grave reservations. In other words, forget it.
Well, again, it's an idea, and we're looking at all proposals.
Yes.
So.
But I do like the idea if it's large. If it's if it meets the code that we have now, no permit. If you want to go larger than that, I like the idea of a permit and a fine in place if they're not following it, that kind of thing. But that's me.
Right. If we're talking about private property, the fine would be our administrative citation process.
Right.
So we have homework.
Yeah.
I think so.
How long is that process, by the way?
The administrative citation? That depends. Depends if you appeal it, if you pay it, if you take it down right away. It depends. So usually we'll send a courtesy notice on a normal nuisance. If there's an urgency issue, for instance, if we're trying to be fair for political, we'll issue that no-fee citation immediately. And then usually you give a certain amount of time that's reasonable for the issue. So for removing a sign, maybe 48 hours, maybe 3 days, depending on...
I've seen it in the city that took...
Can we get back to the non-commercial sign issue in front of us, rather than the citation process?
Excuse me?
Right now, we're talking about non-commercial and political permit signs. We're not talking about the citation process. I just want us to get us back on point.
All right.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think we've made enough direction. I need a break.
Yeah. See your direction?
We have our direction.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we'll call this session back to order at 8:25. Brings us to item 2D, the Economic Development Committee makeup and appointment of 2 council members.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. At City Council meeting on February 16th of this year, Council appointed 2 members to work with staff to form an Economic Development Committee. On Tuesday, February 23rd, staff met with Councilmember Roscoe and Councilwoman Condon to discuss the goals and mission of the committee as well as potential committee makeup. That makeup that we discussed that day has been attached to the staff report for your review, and it totals 13 appointments, 2 being council members. Beaumont Chamber representative makes up 1, local developer representative is 1, 2 Beaumont business community members. The 7th would be a Beaumont Unified School District or secondary education representative. 8 would be post-secondary education representative. 9 community member, non-business member. An appointed expert rotating member. 11 city manager and or her designee. And then the people in the room decided that short-term appointments might be valuable for this committee. Whether that's true going forward long-term, maybe not. Maybe it's a great idea. So to have short-term appointments available for this committee allows for some flexibility from the staff's perspective as well as council's. The mission of the committee is very similar to the mission that was presented in the first meeting. Both council members and staff felt comfortable with the formal mission statement, and we discussed the goals of the Economic Development Committee. And if you remember the last time we talked about it, I gave you a menu of goals that the Economic Development Committee could get involved with and responsibilities that they could entail. What we decided in the first meeting is to continue with this menu approach on the goals as opposed to trying to limit or hinder what the committee could do in the short term or the long term, and allow the committee to, once it's formally established, to come up with a 1-year action plan on what the committee itself feels they can accomplish within that first year and what goals and objectives and responsibilities they would like to take on during that year period. And that 1-year action plan would be one of the first things the committee would do. Bring that back to council so that council knows what the committee is working on and can have any suggestions and approve that action plan so they kind of know what their marching orders are. The recommendations from staff tonight are that City Council discuss and approve the committee makeup as presented, appoint 2 council members to sit on that committee, and third is to direct staff to work with the 2 appointed council members to solicit local representatives who may be interested in sitting and working on that committee. Staff has taken the liberty of creating an application if council chooses to go that route, much similar to the Standing Financial Committee application process. Be a little bit different because we have definitive seats on the board, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't apply for what seat that they would like. So I have the application available. I'm fine-tuning it today and tomorrow, and if council would like to go to an application process for the committee, we'll go ahead and finish that tomorrow and get it on the web. This is just an idea I'm throwing out there. I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Mayor, may I make a comment before we get started? Maybe save some time?
Mayor Pro Tem White?
I think you guys did a great job. I like what you put together here, and if the other 2, if Councilmember Orozco and Councilmember Condon are still happy with what they're recommending, I'd like to make a motion and that we approve the committee makeup as presented.
Second?
I second that. Also, I want to, I think both Councilmember Condon and Councilmember Roscoe have an interest in this, keeping on this.
Yes.
Can we do that all at once?
I move that we
Is that-
approve the committee makeup. I move that, I don't know, does the mayor have to pick the council members? Because I'm okay with with Mr. Roscoe and Dr. Del Condon
That's
also. Dr. Condon.
Do we have any public speakers?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Let me
And
open
I'll
and
make
close.
number 3 also part of the motion if you want. Direct staff to work with the 2 appointed council members to solicit local representatives.
I just had one question on
Yeah,
that.
me too. Just a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
You have a question?
Yeah, but go ahead. Maybe you ask the same question.
One of the questions, I like the motion and I like everything about the committee. It just doesn't identify, do we need to stagger or have terms of committee members similar to what we had on the finance committee? I didn't see that addressed, or do we need to address that at this point?
Well, we talked about it in the finance committee, but it never actually made it to the ordinance.
Ah, okay.
So we didn't go with staggered
We did?
terms.
Okay.
No, we talked about it, and we said, our decision was that we could, at the next council meeting, suggest, at the end of the 1 year, suggest to council that now we think it might make sense
We
to
do the same thing here then?
I'm good with it, but I guess Mr. Roscoe has some questions with his recommendation.
Right, that's all I had. Councilmember Roscoe?
Oh, no, I just want, first of all, I appreciate and thank you for allowing myself and Dr. Condon to continue on there. I appreciate that. And I know she's put a lot of time along with staff and trying to put this together in the best interest of our city, of bringing business and helping commercial investment into our city, which I think is huge. I just want to make what you guys thought in terms of finding or to solicit representatives and how you would want to go about that. Kyle had made a good recommendation in terms of, Kyle, well, I'm going to give Kyle a lot of credit here. He put a lot of work into this in terms of, making his suggestions and also suggesting that which Elizabeth made, is that Kyle knows the ins and outs and who people are in the community and all the landowners, commercial owners. He's worked with them. I like that process to go through Kyle and vent that, because there's some people that out there that he may know that we would like to be on there. They're not interested, and he knows these people personally, in terms of working with them on a daily basis.
I was comfortable with that. That's why I made the motion that to direct staff to work with 2 appointed council members to solicit local representatives. You guys can do that however you want.
So you don't want that to come back to council to confirm those?
I'm okay the way you have it written
my
here.
thought that the people that we solicit, if they show interest for the position, automatically we come back to council so that the 5 of you can officially appoint them to sit on the committee. I don't, why I'm glad that you have confidence in me to do that. By no means do I want to be the person that appoints them to a committee that's been created by city council.
Right, but my opinion is that these positions are pretty specific in nature, and I really don't want to get into a whole political discussion about each and every individual. If I'm comfortable, if the 3 of you agree on somebody, you got my blessing.
And my recommendation would be just to bring back a city manager staff report, update under city manager report.
Maybe receive and file the committee as you have it.
All right.
I just wanted
to need to amend our motion, or just...
I think my motion still fits what we got here.
And we have a second too, correct?
Yes.
Who was the second?
I'll second. Yeah, I did, I think. It's getting late, yes.
All right, so for the record, we opened and closed public comments at 8:30 with no speakers.
Thank you.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem White, second by Knight, to approve recommended council actions 1, 2, and 3. We'll take roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lauder?
Yes. The motion carries.
Can I make a comment?
Councilmember Knight, you want to make a comment?
I do. I think this is really exciting to see this go forward. Also, I think that it's really important that we work with our Chamber of Commerce, because they're on the forefront when people come to our community. And quite honestly, we need to rebuild our relationship with them. And so I'm hoping this will help do that, because there are a lot of our business owners and really nice group of people there that help promote our city, and it's really important that we rebuild that. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, brings us to item 2E, contract award for bus shelter and assembly installation RFP.
And Selena's going to present.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. City of Beaumont Pass Transit has been working on a bus shelter project to identify key locations in the City of Beaumont where we can enhance passengers' security and comfort while they're waiting for the bus. A few years ago, we purchased a couple of dozen bus shelters. More than half of them were installed by using city staff members, but because of the reduction in forces, we no longer have the means with the city staff, existing resources to assemble and install those bus shelters. So on January 11th, we brought to City Council a recommendation to approve a request for a proposal to assemble and install bus shelters, 8 of them that are remaining in the city's right-of-way, because we don't have city staff to do them. 3 contractors have submitted bids, and you have it in your packet, the 3 that submitted their bids. All of them are qualified to do the work. But based on the criteria outlined in the RFP, the schedule and overall cost, staff recommends that we award the contract to ND Construction Company. All labor that will be at prevailing wages as required in the RFP, and they'll certify the payroll and for city staff to verify that. There will not be a fiscal impact into the City of Beaumont. We do have grants to cover it, as well as reappropriation of RCTC funds to cover the remaining balance. So staff recommends 3 things. We ask to accept ND Construction's proposal and award the contract to them. Second is to authorize the mayor to execute the contract for ND Construction Services, subject to city attorney's review for non-substantive changes. And 3 is to approve the purchase order, Transit 2016-10, in the amount of $46,456, which is the cost of assembling and installing those 8 shelters around the city's right-of-way.
I have a question, Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers for this item?
Not this one, Mayor.
Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and open and close public comment at 8:38. Councilmember Roscoe?
Yeah, just a quick question. Do appreciate the checking for the prevailing wages. I'm sure Dr. Condon is happy about that, too.
So noted.
Change orders. We wouldn't be seeing any change orders on this, whether...
No.
No.
Nope, no change orders.
We
What?
can't say no for sure.
Yeah, that's why.
It's not our intention to not issue any.
Okay. Because I know it says, when I saw number 2 here, that's why, item number 2, it says, services subject to city attorney review with non-substantive changes. But I know, well, not just that, but they kind of brought up to mind that if this is for the amount, I see $46.97, which is a big difference, and then $49. I know going with the lowest bidder is, in some cases, beneficial. At the same time, I just want to make sure they're not coming in so low, and then you get a change order or 2 saying, oh, we need some nuts and bolts that we don't have, and blah, 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 and all of a sudden it's $51,000.
Well, and anything over 10% is going to come back to council for approval.
It's 10%.
$4,600.
Okay.
So my thought, to answer your question, is if we have to pour a slab of concrete and during the excavation it's determined that maybe we need to put in a retaining wall in order to hold back some dirt before that slab, things like that. Selena's done 100% due diligence in picking these sites and ensuring that all of the necessary construction work was included in the RFP. However, as you know, when you start getting into things, sometimes stuff happens. So anything over 10% would come back to council.
Okay.
And we can stop the project at that time if council says no. Pick another site, that's too much money.
Okay. I'm glad that those procedures are in place. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Knight?
I move to approve 1, 2, and 3.
I second that.
Okay, motion by Knight, second by White to approve.
Selena?
Actions.
I got one quick comment, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Did you, by any chance, contact Sunline Transit?
Yes.
You did?
I
And they
spoke
were
with
happy?
Anita.
I know that they've done a large volume of work over the past couple of years with their new expansion and all their...
Yeah, I spoke with Anita there. I also spoke with RTA. They did some work with RTA and the city of Whittier.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, sorry.
All right, so we'll take roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes.
Who was the second?
White?
And that brings us to item number 5, consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar as
I'll
is.
second that.
And motion is second on consent calendar.
Okay, so motion by White, second by Orozco to approve consent calendar, items A through E. Roll call. Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Condon?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem White?
Yes.
Mayor Lara?
Yes. Okay, with that, we will
Mayor,
adjourn.
just for the record, City Treasurer wanted me to let everyone know that she was unable to make the meeting tonight. She was out of town.
Thank you. We will adjourn our open session and re-adjourn our closed session at 8:42.